Welcome to the RMM Talkshow. I'm Rita Isiba, and together with my lovely co-host Margareta Sailer, we explore strategies and share insights in that redefine meaningful management.
We'll be talking about new work, inclusive leadership with a real emphasis on employee experience and engagement.
Winning talents. I believe that's the alpha and omega of every modern workplace.
Yes.
You know, it's a question that I am constantly occupied with, and now I have a great opportunity to sit together or stand with you together and talk about the details of how to win and attract and, of course, to retain talent.
Yeah.
So I prepared a couple of questions.
Awesome.
And I'm going to read them off a sheet of paper. Every company and manager wants the best possible talent out there, but not everyone can have it.
Yep.
What did you do in your career to ensure you built a top talented team?
Yeah. Perfect question. Love it. As you can appreciate, that's like my thing. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those questions I get asked by every founder that I work with, and people particularly interested in building that because that's obviously my background. So whenever I work with founders to build a company, I really help them understand that it's a strategic effort. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of time when you think about hiring people, you might not really think about doing that in a very specific way, at a very specific time frame, or even thinking about hiring the right people. So I always give that sort of tip to the people I work with is to say, before you build the next part of your company, before you scale or you might restructure, look at your existing talent. Mm-hmm. So where does your talent come from? What do they do? What experience do they bring with them? But also most importantly is what is going to make them successful in the future. So what does your company need for the next 12, 18 plus months that will make this company successful? Mm-hmm. And I think when you do that, you have a really good baseline. So you know where to start, don't you? And that will then help you to look towards the future. And it's about what type of roles do you want to hire? I think it's really important to be strategic and say, I might have about 30 jobs that I need to fill in a year, but these 10 jobs are the most important. They're critical to the business. If I don't hire for these 10 jobs, my business will fail. Mm-hmm. And that's something that people overlook, but it makes a massive difference. Recruiting is hard at any time, but when you focus recruitment and you make it a focused effort, that's when you win that real talent.
You have to be really proactive and strategic on your decisions and who to bring in, right?
Yeah, ideally, exactly. That's what you want to do, right? So it's really about gathering all that knowledge in order to build your recruitment strategy and propel your company to the next level. And I always also work with founders to say, so it's one thing about the skills that you need. What type of position is open, what sort of technical skills do your people need, but there's also something else. Every company has some sort of company culture, if you like it or not. The more people get together, a culture forms. Mm-hmm. And as a company, you can either form them on purpose, and you create your values, or the sum of your people create your company values, or you can some people call it a credo, what makes us successful. It's about the ability of what type of people do you need? What ability do they bring with to succeed? So next to just thinking about, what roles do I have? We also need to think about the more sort of emotional intelligence side. We need to think about what else is there, And I think with that in mind, you look towards these traits in people. But most importantly, again, you spend some time to understand it. And when you do the interviews, that is the important part. Spend the time with your people to understand them. I think in a lot of time in interviews, you ask some questions, they're not particularly thought through. So actually it does make sense to sit down and think about the 5 to 10 most relevant questions to the job, but also for the person to have the ability to do it. And this is one way of ensuring that you have a structure. This then helps you to train a team, because sometimes it's about winning talent, it's about moving mountains. Winning talent is about mobilizing, ideally, your whole workforce, because it takes a long time to recruit. You know, from my experience working in recruitment for a good 20 years, one recruiter on one job can spend 70 hours,
Wow.
hours, just to find, recruit, and get this person through the whole recruitment process. And that's when you're looking for the needle in the haystack talent, you know.
Absolutely. Time is money.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you know, what do you want to do? The better you're prepared, the better you can do this actually, right? So, you know, when you have your strategy, connect your people and be clear on the company's goals and the mission and the vision and how that feeds into the recruitment process. And that will really help you to stand out. That is something from my personal experience on building my own teams that I have done. I've always looked for diversity because to me that's natural. For me that is important. So I always looked at my teams in terms of what backgrounds do they have, academic, non-academic. How long have they been in the workforce, early, mid, you know, towards the end of their working life? What sort of companies have they worked in? And actually, when I build my team, I look at the part of the business to understand what they're after. And I will potentially go and find somebody at a competitor company who can easily bring me people. And I think what helped me specifically, going back to your question on finding the top talent for my teams, for my recruiting teams, was also to think about what does my team need, but also what does this part of the business need. So if my recruiter recruits for a particular part of the business, let's say finance, what are the finance people like? How do they behave? And actually, if I match that to the business, it works well. It's like a dream because they settle in so much quicker. You know, it's just a more natural fit. So I haven't always been able to do it, but when I did it, it worked so well.
One thing that I noticed is that when you spoke about the importance of putting together a group of people from all different backgrounds, I love the fact that you didn't highlight the typical aspects of diversity, which is usually external.
Yes.
For example, skin color or gender. The fact that everyone is diverse in a different ways, be it based on qualifications or marital status, geographic location, or the linguistic skills that they have. So I love the fact that you highlighted that.
Yeah. So for me personally, it's always been to focus on the person's ability. So what comes around it comes with it. So I don't, you know, it is not relevant for me. It's the ability to do the job. And that's what it should be, right? This is how we build a more open and inclusive work. And the very last part about, you know, building that and having that successful team for me was always communication. So when I built my teams, I brought them together and I created a safe space for them. So I made sure that they knew that they're in the circle of trust, I used to call it. And they knew when we got all into a room, they could challenge me, they could challenge other team members, we were professional, and they could talk about what's happening or what bothers them going on the outside. I think that was really key and important for me, not just to win the talent, but then actually also retain it. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for that. I'm actually a little bit more enlightened to that topic, but there's 3 more, and I think that would really give me a broader view and understanding and how to attract the right people to an organization. So what traits do talented employees actually have, in your opinion? I know it's a bit politically incorrect to say that.
Yeah, no, I get it. And, you know, actually the answer is it depends on how your company operates and what they want to achieve. But the reality really is I have seen common themes, if I'm honest with you, and traits. And one of those traits, you know, to attract the talent and what traits they have for me was always not just the ability to work as a team as much as independent. For me, it was actually that mindset of never giving up. So somebody who has that mindset of wanting to solve a problem that may have never seen before, you know, that they actually have no clue about solving. Because, you know, startups, small, medium businesses, large companies, they all have challenges. And they need solving.
Of course.
So if you think about that, what people classify as a top talent, would be, in my personal view, somebody who can solve these issues.
Think on their feet, right?
Right, exactly. And be resilient, you know, especially in this day and age, the way we live, you know, the uncertain times that we are in economically, psychologically to an extent. You need somebody who has that. Even if you don't have that resilience, you can build on it, you can learn it. So as long as you have that learning mindset and the ability to solve problems, I think that's your winner.
Resilience is actually quite an interesting trait that we hear more and more.
Yeah.
I think it's quite difficult to measure resilience at the stage of an interview. But I no? What do you think?
Yeah, so it depends actually, because whenever again, it goes back to asking the questions, right? And from resilience, I would actually always ask people for experiences of times where they had to do something that was really hard, something that they hadn't done before. And it didn't matter if it was at university, outside of work, or at work. And by them telling you the challenges they have overcome, you can learn. Or another method when you interview is actually, especially in technical jobs, to come up with a problem and explain the problem to that candidate and ask them how they would solve it. So to an extent, you can see it and hear it if you ask the right questions and if you're willing to delve deeper. Why did you do that? What did you learn? What was important? Yeah, it's a little help. It's a little tip.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually I've kind of taken it on myself now to actually apply it in the next round of interviews that I'm going to do.
Completely.
As well.
Got a very important job,
What happens to other team members when they work with amazingly talented people?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I was lucky enough in my career to work in some super cool companies, and I've been lucky in my career to work in companies that grow pretty fast, so you could really see the impact of people. And when you bring that top talent, it's interesting because it can really propel your company forward. It's a very interesting phenomenon, and I think it's very psychological. I have seen teams moving mountains, and that's because they inspired each other. So if you think about, for example, a very niche job in your company, there is quite often always a niche job, right? And if you hire somebody who's on top of their game or is a thought leader, somebody who understands their own jobs, the competitors, and somebody who's quite out there and wanting to seek more, they can really affect the rest of your team. And it actually is one thing that you mentioned in another series that we had before around diversity and inclusion. It's about, having great people together, and then they get competitive in the sense that they want to be better because you make me a better person, because you inspire me so much. I just want to do a better job. So that's, yeah,
I love that anecdote that you made there, because I come from a big family, and I realize also within the family dynamics, it doesn't apply everywhere, but it applies to my family, that we all kind of inspire each other as well in different aspects, even though we are so individual and we all have our different interests as well. And experience, of course, right? But as one unit, we do inspire each other to be better, and we also learn from each other as well, because my interest in video games is very little, but at the same time I learn about strategy in that regard.
Completely, from video games you do, actually.
You do, don't you?
Yeah, completely.
So this actually applies in the workplace as well. You're in a diverse force, right? And you might not be in that niche, but you do learn from each other, even though you might not be an expert, but it's just to gain that understanding and that empathetic feeling, right?
Like what you said about video games, because they also teach you how to solve problems.
It's true, depending on maybe it should be part of the curriculum, the school curriculum as well. I do have one more question though for you. What tips can you give to the audience or to me in regards to winning talents? Just very briefly, something that can stick to my mind.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'll probably repeat a little bit from the stuff, so I kind of summarize it, if I'm honest. So it really is that being strategic about what you have, and being strategic about what you need. And it's not just you as a manager in that moment. What does your company need as much as what does your team need? And you need to understand a little bit more about the culture in that sense. And, you know, again, creating that environment that your people can thrive in, even in uncertain times. Connect your people, make sure that they can talk to each other. That's what you said before, right? Make sure they have the right tools. Because, you know, if you win some amazing talent, the last thing you want to do is letting them waste time by doing mindless admin that, you know, an app could do for you.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You know, you pay them a lot of money. Let them do their job.
Exactly.
So it's all about creating that environment. Because also if you do that, if you give good tools, structures, policies, it creates equality.
Yes.
Because people will have the same experience.
Yes.
Inequality
it's
not a good
dire.
thing. Yeah, it's not good in life, and it's not good in a company.
Exactly.
And going back to connecting your teams, you know, just making sure that they understand the wider company goal, the vision and mission, but also their individual goals as people and as a team. For me personally, that would be sort of my top tip. That's the stuff that worked for me really well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that knowledge. I'm probably going to dive in a little more deeper after this episode. I've got a few questions for you. Thank you. You're amazing, you know.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Thank you for joining us in this discussion. That's it for today's episode.
Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more insights and inspiration on building inclusive and engaged organizations.
Until next time, remember that inclusivity isn't just a goal.
It's the key to unlocking the future potential of people.